the mother and the chemistry of her blood influence the genetics of the child. Mother's parenting style can affect the activity of a child's genes. So there is a lot of responsibility in being a parent that we have not been aware of. Parents are genetic engineers because they shape the genetics of their child. Who are we? What parents tell us, we become. So if parents tell us we are smart and bright and lovely and wonderful, that goes into the program. But if we are told we are not nice people, or we're not smart, or we're not pretty, or we're not good, that goes into the program. What environment is controlling the development of the fetus? The mother's environment shapes the fetal environment. When a woman is having a baby and she visits an obstetrician, the obstetrician asks mainly 3 questions. Are you eating well? Are you taking vitamins and minerals? Are you getting exercise? Why so few questions? And the answer is this. Medicine believes the fetus is controlled by the genes, genetic determination. And so therefore, the development of the baby has nothing to do with the mother. And so therefore, the mother's only role is to feed the baby. But as we talked about, the new science called epigenetics says that the environment controls the genes. Now think about this. This is an issue. Is there more in the mother's blood than just nutrition? Yes, emotions, the chemistry of emotions, the stress hormones, and all the other factors that control the mother's body also go into the placenta and affect the fetus. If the mother is happy, the chemistry of happiness makes the baby happy. If the mother is stressed or angry, the baby is stressed and angry. It's not the baby's brain that is controlling that. It is the response to the chemistry of the mother's blood. And now we know that the baby's brain is learning. Halfway through pregnancy, the brain starts learning. So the emotional patterns and behavior of the mother are being learned by the baby before it's born. But this does not leave the father out of the picture. Because if the father irritates or upsets the mother, then that is translated to the baby. And you might say, why should nature allow the mother to influence the baby so much? And the answer is this. When the baby is born, it will live in the environment that the mother experiences. So the mother is nature's Head Start program. It prepares the baby for the world that is present when that baby is born. And that the influence of the mother and the chemistry of her blood influence the genetics of the child. So, for example, the experiences of the mother during World War II, and this is in the Netherlands, a scientific study, when there was not enough food and people were in starvation, the influence of the starvation on the mother was passed to and affected the genetics of the child. And when the child grew up and had her own baby, it passed the influence of starvation onto the next generation. In science, it's called the grandmother effect. That the grandmother is influencing 2 generations. As I mentioned, medicine has said that all the development is just controlled by the genes of the baby, and that the brain and the nervous system of the fetus doesn't really work until just near birth. This is now proven to be totally wrong. That the baby, as I mentioned, is learning by midway through pregnancy. It's learning now. So if the father talks to the baby through the abdominal wall, the baby will learn the voice of the father, and when the baby is born and the father says any words, the baby will know which one the father is. And also it works with music because people play music to the baby and it learns the music before it's born. Now I'm going to show you an experiment, a sonogram. And it's a sonogram of a fetus, and there's an argument between the mother and the father. It's in Italian, but it doesn't make a difference because an argument is the same in any language. But what I want you to observe is the response of the fetus.
Basta! Mi hai stufato! Non ti sopporto più!
Non urlare!
Insomma, basta!
Quando un bambino...
Basta! Mi hai stufato! Non ti sopporto più! Insomma, basta!
Quando un bambino...
The baby experiences everything the mother experiences. And if there are patterns, that's when the baby learns. So we were affected before we were born. The personality we have was being laid down before we were born. And in a new book called Why Love Matters by Susan Gerhardt, she describes how the brain develops and how our personality is already derived by 2 years of age. And that's the personality we will express through the rest of our lives until we change that. And I have been talking about how parents influence the genetics of the child. And I say parents are genetic engineers because they shape the genetics of their child. And I've been talking about that for 20 years. And now finally science, and this is from Scientific American, and the conclusion, as they show, the findings suggest that a mother's parenting style can affect the activity of a child's genes. So there is a lot of responsibility in being a parent that we have not been aware of, because we've always said genes control biology, but it's the environment that controls biology. Question.
In the news and worldwide, we see an increase of autism and learning disabilities in children. And the question is, can this trend also be reversed or improved?
There is an epidemic increase in autism, yes, but it's not all due to negative environments, so it's not all the parents' fault. It's an influence of the field, an influence of things believed, for example, like vaccines, and there might be an influence from spiritual, bringing in from the spiritual world. The question is there anything that can be done about it? And yes, the answer is yes. One of the most important things is if you catch it early. And you may ask, well, how would you know early? And this also brings up an important topic which I'll expand on. When a baby is born, it has got an instinct to learn the parent's face within the first few days of birth. And you'll see when a mother or a father is holding the baby will stare at the face. Within 2-3 weeks after the baby is born, the baby can distinguish on the basis of the eyes of the parents if the parents are happy or the parents are afraid or angry. And it's a very important reason why the baby does this. Because when a baby now is born, everything is new for the baby in the world. And the instinct of the baby when it comes across something new is to turn and look at the face of the parents. And if the parent looks like no, the baby will instantly learn that whatever that the baby was near was dangerous or shouldn't go near it, and it doesn't need to learn any more than that. It just looks at the face. And if the baby looks at the parent's face and sees that the father or the mother is happy when the baby is looking at something new, then the baby immediately knows that perception is that whatever that is, it is not bad. But you also might be familiar with it's not just in babies, because when a child is on a playground and falls down from a swing or some toy, or the baby or the child will look for the parents. And if the parents are in shock, the baby or the child will cry. And if the child looks at the parent and the parents go, like it's okay, the child will get up and everything will be okay. So the important fact is this: a child learns about the world first by studying the face and the eyes of the parents. And what's different about an autistic child, it doesn't look in the face and the eyes of the parents. And there is a book by a woman called Katie Granju, and she describes how an orphan baby was autistic and would not look at the face of the caretaker. So the caretaker would feed the baby with a bottle, but if the baby did not look at her eyes, she took the bottle out. And soon the baby learned to feed by looking into the eyes of the caretaker. and that baby was no longer, grew up not to be autistic. And this is a parenting problem because most parents do not know that this important communication is going on. So they're not paying attention when the child is looking for information in their face. And this interferes with the instinct of learning. So if parents do not pay attention like this, then frequently the child then starts looking everywhere for some information and then loses its focus and attention. And it contributes to attention deficit disorder. This is a recent review from the journal Science, and it talks about where do the patterns of disease come from. Environmental processes influencing the propensity to disease in adulthood operate during the periconceptual, the fetal, and infant phases of life. So issues of cardiovascular disease, cancer, obesity, diabetes are all rooted in the earliest stages of our life, around the time of conception, fetal development, and the infant phases. In brain research, we study the what's called EEG, which is the vibration activity of the brain. As adults, we have very high and low ranges of activities going on all the time. But in our development, we jump from lower to the higher, to the higher, to the higher vibrations over time. For the first 2 years, from before birth to the first 2 years, we are in the lowest frequency. Okay, this is for an adult, delta is like sleeping or unconscious. But for a child, the child is not unconscious, but because the child can't make a response, it is like behind a window watching the world but can't respond. From 2 until 6, there's higher activity called theta. When we're in theta, it's like imagination. That's why children between 2 and 6 mix the real world and the imaginary world in their play. When the child gets to 6, then another level starts called alpha, which is calm consciousness. When the child reaches 12, it can express all the ranges from delta, theta, alpha, and this is like schoolroom consciousness, beta. The most important point, consciousness, the way we think consciousness, is not available to the child until after 6. The first 6 years are the programmable state. The reason is this low activity is called the hypnagogic trance. So when if I want to hypnotize you, I have to take you from higher levels into lower levels, and then I can put information into the subconscious, which is in here. This is an important reason for this period. This is a period of enculturation. A child has to learn thousands and thousands of facts about how to fit into the family and to society. And so the nature doesn't give the child consciousness to create new things. It just gives it the brain activity to download facts. The child is in a state of super learning. A child between 0 and 6 can learn 3 languages at the same time. But after this period, if you try to teach a child just one language, it's difficult. So this period in our life is where we learn the fundamentals of relationships, connections, family, and community. And this is also the period where we learn self-identity. Who are we? What parents tell us we become. So if parents tell us we are smart and bright and lovely and wonderful, that goes into the program. But if we are told we are not nice people, or we're not smart, or we're not pretty, or we're not good, that goes into the program. So for example, in a store, when a child is throwing a tantrum because it wants a toy, and then the parents say, "You do not deserve the toy," then that is the program, "I do not deserve." But once it's in the subconscious, it's recorded like a tape player. And the rest of your life, the subconscious will play, I do not deserve, I do not deserve. So that the programs that we acquired in the first 6 years shape how we live our life. But this is all below consciousness. So you may not know the programs you received because you were not conscious really during this time period. But most all of us have received a program of not good enough, not the best we can be.